Okay, so this is going to be a weird one to talk about because it requires a level of honesty that I don't know most people are comfortable with or not, including me, honestly. But I have been thinking about this for a while and I need to just to talk about it at some point, and I don't know exactly when it happened. I became the adult I used to judge, not in some obvious way where I can point to a moment and say that's where it happened. More like I was in middle of doing something and completely ordinary and saying something, reacting to something, handling something, and I stopped and I thought, wait, I have seen this before. I have seen this exact thing, the exact reaction, this exact way of handling this exact situation, and it was my parents. So here is the thing nobody tells you about growing up. You spend a significant portion of your childhood, your teenage years especially, building a very clear picture of what you will never be. The things your parents did that frustrated you, confused you, hurt you sometimes. You played all of that away, consciously or not, as a list of things you will not become. And then life happens, time passes, slowly, quietly, without asking your permission. You became some of those things anyway. Not all of them, but enough to be uncomfortable. I think about the specific things that used to drive me crazy about the adults in my life when I was younger. The way they would shut down instead of talking through something, the way they would react to stress by becoming distant or difficult, the way certain topics were just off limits, never discussed, just silently understood to be dangerous territory. I used to think, why? Why can't they just talk about it? Why can't they just be honest? It seems so obvious what the right thing to do was, and now I catch myself going quiet when I should speak, avoiding certain conversation because they feel too heavy to start, reacting to stress in ways that I recognize that I have seen before in the people I used to silently judge for doing the exact same thing. And the worst part isn't doing it, the worst part is the moment you notice you are doing it. And the second half of recognition, that's the uncomfortable thing. And here is I've been trying to understand though, because I don't think this is just weakness or failure or some proof that we are all doomed to repeat our parents' mistake forever. I think what's actually happening is more interesting and comfortable than that. Your parent didn't choose most of their parents either. They inherited them from their parents, who inherited them from theirs, going back to generations through things nobody ever sat down and consciously decided to pass on. Trauma moves like that, not dramatically, not in big obvious ways, just quietly through behavior, through the way you handle conflict and what you push down, through what you say when you're scared or tired or overwhelmed. You absorbed all that before you had the language to name it, before you even knew that was something to notice. And now it's in you, running sometimes without you knowing it's running. And see, I think this is where most people stop. They notice the pattern, they feel bad about it, they promise themselves they will do better, and the next stressful moment comes and this pattern runs again because that's what patterns do, because they don't care about your promises, they just run. What actually changes things? And I'm still figuring this out. I'm not saying I have solved it, is something slightly different. It's not promising to be different, it's getting genuinely curious about where the thing came from. Not to excuse it, not to blame your parents or their parents or whoever, but to understand well enough that you can see it coming, to create even a small gap between the trigger and the reaction, between the moment something happens and the moment the old pattern kicks in. That gap, even a tiny one, is where actual choices lives. The other thing I keep coming back to is that recognizing your parents' pattern in yourself, as uncomfortable as it is, is also one of the most humanizing things that can happen to you, because suddenly they are not just your parents anymore, they are people who were also inheriting things they didn't choose, who were doing their best with patterns they didn't fully understand and probably never examined, who were also at some point the kid promised themselves they would be different from the adults they were watching, and then life happened to them too. That doesn't fix everything. Same things don't get fixed just by being understood, but it changes something. The way you hold it changes. The anger gets a little more complicated. The judgment gets a little quieter. Not gone, just complicated. I don't have a clean ending for this one. I don't think there is one. This isn't the kind of thing that resolves. You just keep noticing, keep catching yourself, keep trying to make the gap slightly bigger between the old pattern and new response. And sometimes you catch it and sometimes you don't. And you recognize it when it's already done. And then you try again, and that's probably the most honest thing I can say about it.